Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 3. The Argument. This chapter doth the blessed scene relate, prevailing when Hari did incarnate. His mighty four-armed form divine he showed, the maternity room with lustre glowed. The prayers of Vasudev and Devaki, describing his supreme divinity, Krishna reveals how in the days of yore he was incarnate from them twice before. Vasudeva bears child Krishna away, and to the home of Nanda doth convey. Sri Sukha said, "And now arrived the blessed season fair, wherein all graces and virtues appear, surcharged with auspiciousness and delight, with Brahma's constellation shining bright. The stars and luminaries were at peace, which augured of blessedness and increase. The directions were tranquil and serene, the sky was clear, the stars shimmering gleam. The earth was blessed with complacent content in city, town, and rural settlement, and mining quarries with their jewels glowed. The lakes were placid, and the rivers flowed wherein blooming water lilies abound. The birds were vocal, and the bees resound. The verdant lustre of the leafy trees was charged with the auspicious fragrant breeze, which felt to touch delightsome and pleasant along with the invigorating scent. The twice-born ones, contented, were at ease. The flames of sacrifice burn with increase. The good and pious had been sore distressed, and by the evil demons were oppressed. But when the birth of the birthless drew nigh, the kettle drums resounded in the sky. The Kinnaras and the Gandharvas raise with songs and verses his auspicious praise. The Vidyadharas sing sweet melodies, and joyful dance the fair Apsarasis. The gods and holy sages from on high, exulting, scatter flowers from the sky. Rumbling clouds reverberated round, mildly re-echoing the ocean's sound. And thus, in the dense darkness of the night, the Almighty One, Janardhan hight, assumed his birth from pious Devaki, who held within her all divinity. Thus Vishnu, who dwells in all, radiant, rose like the bright moon in the Orient. Vasudev, his eyes dilated with awe, a wonderful lotus-eyed infant saw, who shone with radiant and lovely charms, with his famed emblems and 4 sturdy arms, and on whose bosom goddess Shri did dwell, his lovely neck most delicately formed, wherein he held the discus and the shell, and on whose bosom goddess Shri did dwell. His lovely neck, most delicately formed, was with the bright Kaustuba gem adorned. His beauty like dark, dense cloud was seen, contrasting with his yellow garments' sheen. His shining earrings and his diadem sparkled with diamond and Vaiduria gem, reflecting on his hair that tumbled down in sable ringlets from his shining crown. His waist was girt with ornamental zone, his golden armbands and his bracelets shone. Now, as Anakadundubi descried, Hari, his son, his eyes dilated wide, since Krishna as his son did incarnate, a grand nativity would celebrate. To the Brahmins, although he was confined, gifted 10,000 cows within his mind. Now to the child whom he perceived to be the primal transcendent divinity, he saw how the lying-in chamber blazed with his great lustre while he on him gazed. And bowing low, with palms together pressed, O Bharat, his high eulogy expressed. Sri Vasudeva said, Ah me, I know thee now, and comprehend. Thou art the one who nature doth transcend. Thou revellest in thy inherent bliss, and art of the intellect the witness. Though through thine own creative energy evolve all this by the attributes three, and though it seemest thou hast made ingress, thou hast not entered it nevertheless. And even as these elements exist prior to evolution, they subsist in differentiation till the time the elements in harmony combine. And as the evolution doth progress, it seems into effects they make ingress, but it is not so, since effects they antedate, and enter not, remaining separate. Thus, even so, thou art, O Lord divine, beyond the intellect by any sign. The sense objects, sense faculties perceive, and intellect doth impressions receive, but thou dost within and without remain, the self of all, and all thou dost sustain. Whoso the self with gunas doth confound is by an inverted conception bound. He is a fool, and thus cannot discern, nor from wise counsel, nor from reason learn. And who with soul body identifies, his view has been rejected by the wise. From thee all this vast creation evolves. It rests in thee, and back to thee resolves. And wise scholars, O mighty Lord, maintain that thou dost e'er unmodified remain, that thou art from acts and qualities free, the ruler and supreme divinity. In this is no contradiction, indeed, since all by function of gunas proceed. Thou art, O Lord, of the three spheres the stay, which thou by Maya power dost display. In the white form of Sattva you maintain the creation, and in thyself sustain. Thou dost in the red form of Rajas create, which doth by evolution generate. The dark tamasic form thou dost assume, when thou dost all this withdraw and subsume. Thou for the protection of the world hast come, and made descent incarnate in my home. By thee wicked princes will be subdued, and thou shalt slay the demon multitude, who have as martial princes taken birth, who with their puissant arms oppress the earth. O Lord of gods, this villain, having heard and knowing the prophecy, will be stirred. He has will thy elder brothers killed, and learning of thy birth, he will be filled with indignation, and will hasten now with weapons raised to strike the deadly blow. Sri Shuka said, Now, marking the signs of divinity in the body of their son Devaki, although of Kamsa very much afraid, and fraught with wonder, praying to him said, Sri Devaki said, Your form and nature are unmanifest, and ancient texts your essence have expressed as primal, absolute, and light divine, immutable, attributeless, sublime, undifferentiated existence, desireless, the simple substance. And you are he, the mighty Vishnu height, the lamp of transcendental wisdom bright, after the vast, extensive years have passed, height Dviparartha, everything at last, the great elements withdraw and involved are into the primeval state resolved. All that remains when all has entered you is you alone, Shesha, the residue. Thus all this is by mighty time propelled, and the unmanifest by you compelled, through mighty time, from twinkling of the eye to moments, days, months, and years that pass by, all this from you the ruler doth ensue. O source of all blessings, I bow to you. The mortals who, fearing death's serpent, flee to divers regions in perplexity, still joy and contentment do never meet. Yet if by chance they find your lotus feet, they rest securely from that very day, and from them death, the dreaded, runs away. O Lord, in fear of Ugrasena's son, we cry your aid and seek your protection, for you are the one who extend relief to bring your servants comfort in their grief. This form illustrious that you reveal, from those who see with fleshy eyes conceal. Your birth, O Madhusudana, from me let not the sinful one have eyes to see. From fear of Kamsa, and by him confined, I am extremely restless in my mind. Therefore, withdraw this majestical form, which conch, discus, mace, and lotus adorn, this four-armed form, a wonder to the eyes. O Lord, be pleased hereafter to disguise. The universe in your body remains, and at the end, within it, all sustains. And when the cosmos reposes in sleep, you in your person commodious keep. But now that you have from my womb been born, the people of the world will mock and scorn. The illustrious one said, in ages back, O chaste and pious dame, during Swayambhuva Manu's long reign, the name of Prishni at that time you bore, and he was taintless Sutapa of yore. With Brahma's order faithful to comply, in view subject creatures to multiply, ye held your senses in strict abatement, and with hard penance did yourselves torment. Ye bore inclemencies with vigour bold, of driving rain and wind, fierce heat and cold, and such practice devoutly did maintain, whereby your minds were cleansed and freed from stain. And while ye meditation thus pursued, dry fallen leaves and air was all your food, and thus your worship eager carried on, desiring from me some benison. In this manner ye carried on with ease extremely difficult austerities, and thus 10,000 divine years ye spent, with all your soul on me alone intent. After 10,000 divine years had passed, your term of penance was over at last, and with ye both I was much satisfied, and by your faith and love was gratified. And e'en now, as now, I did before ye stand, and ordered you a boon from me demand. Since I am foremost of those who bestow, from me the rarest benedictions flow, and at that time ye sought the benison to have one like me as your son. In amorous delight ye spent your life, and wanting offspring lived as man and wife. My godlike Maya kept ye both beguiled, who sought not liberation but a child. Thereafter from ye both I took my leave, and you my benediction did receive, and amorous enjoyment you maintained, thereby fulfilment of your hope attained. Not finding any else like unto me, for character and magnanimity, I decided myself to be your child, born of ye both, as Prishnigarpa styled. When you were Kashyapa and Aditi, at that time also I was born of thee, as Indra's younger brother, then you did me call, and Vamana, because I was quite small. And now, O pious and chaste mother dear, I for the third time before you appear, and in the same form that I showed to you, I stand before you. Take my word for true. This majestical form that you now view has been shown your memory to renew. Elsewise, if this had not been been to you shown, me as but a mortal child would have known. With filial affection think of me, and know me the supreme divinity. On me thus ye shall always meditate, and shall attain to my supernal state. And footnote, an extra verse here, which is not in our regular edition. And if you are of Kamsa still afraid, then let me be to Gokula conveyed, and substitute my Maya, newborn there, and place me there, and bring that infant here. Sri Shuka said, thus having spoke, Hari silent remained, and by his yoga power Maya named, transformed into an ordinary infant before his parents' eyes in an instant. Then by the goddess Yogamaya's spell, the guards and sentinels in slumber fell, and all the other inhabitants there slept soundly, and of all were unaware. The gates, entrances, were firmly barred, and so constructed that egress was hard, with many iron locks and heavy chains that entry or exit thereto constrains. While Vasudeva child Krishna did convey, the bolts and chains of themselves slipped away, as even the gloom of darkness must fly when once Ravi has risen in the sky. Thick clouds, the firmament, thick clouds fill the firmament, rain descends, and Shesha with his hoods a shelter lends, while cloud-compelling Indra sent the rains, Yama's sister with her flood him detains. The turbulent current within the stream, the waves and foam were fearful to be seen, but as of old the ocean lent his aid, to Shri's consort a ready way was made. Arrived at Nanda's cowherd settlement, the cowherds were asleep, and so he bent his steps to where Yashoda laid abed, put down the boy, picked up the girl, and fled. Vasudeva back to his prison hied, and put the babe down by Devaki's side. He bound himself with iron chains again, and as confined before he did remain. Yashoda, Nanda's wife, by sleep beguiled, knew not the gender of the newborn child. Thus ends chapter 3 in book 10 of the great and glorious Bhagavat Purana, the text beloved of swan-like saints, sung by the son of Vyasa. Chapter 4. Sri Shuka said, both the outside gate and inside door were tightly barred and fastened as before, and when the palace guards the bawling heard of the baby newborn wakened and stirred, they quickly rose up in all haste to bring th' unwelcome tidings to the Bodha king, the news that he anxiously did await, how Devaki had given birth relate. He rose up from his luxurious bed and thought now time had arrived, and sped into the maternity room he hied, with garments loosened and his hair untied. The divine Devaki was sore oppressed, disconsolate and helpless and distressed, and said, O brother blessed, O mercy pray, the babe is as thy daughter, do not slay. Dear brother, destiny has been fulfilled, and all my little babies you have killed. But, seeing me distraught with anxious care, allow me but this one daughter, and spare. Certes, I am thy younger sister poor, distressed by loss of children. I implore, O master, it would be a grace from thee, if thou wouldst give this last offspring to me. Sri Shuka said, clasping the baby daughter to her breast, with bitter tears, disconsolate, distressed, she begged him and petitioned to appease, but from her arms the cruel one did seize the bonds of affection he had destroyed, who in his self-interest was there employed. He seized its feet, shameless and unabashed, and would have on the stone the baby dashed, but straightway the infant from his firm grip rose up on high, and from his hands did slip. Then Vishnu's younger sister did appear, with 8 arms, wherewith weapons she did rear. She was with wreaths and divine raiment bright, anointed, and with gem ornaments dight. A bow and arrows, sword and spear and shield, and did the conch and the discus and mace wield. The siddhas and charanas in the sky, Gandharvas and Apsarasis drew nigh. The kinnaras and uragas attend, make offerings and a welcome extend, and while they praised her, favour to invoke, honoured by the heavenly host, she spoke. O foolish wight, what purpose would you gain, if I had been by you wickedly slain? Your death and ancient foe is born elsewhere, therefore you children innocent must spare. So spake the great mother goddess divine, then stablished in many a fane and shrine, then stablished in many a fane and shrine, in many a diverse regions, remains addressed by a variety of names. When Kamsa had hearkened to what she said, he was struck with astonishment and dread. Devaki and Vasudeva straightway released, and then humbly began to say, Ah me, alas, my sin strikes me with awe. O my sister, O my brother-in-law, like one who upon human flesh doth feast, by my hand all your dear sons are deceased. The wretched tyrant that I am, ah me, ruthless towards his kith and family, to what regions I shall hereafter go, or even while breathing I do not know, like one who has a holy Brahmin slain, I go to perdition and there remain. Even the destiny, it seems forsooth, may prophesy falsity and untruth, and not just mortals. And so I believed, and slew, O sin, by prophecy deceived. Therefore, O fortunate ones, do not grieve. Your sons the fruits of their own acts receive. All beings reap their fruits as fates decide, nor in one place can friends always abide. Of earth we may see earthen pots produced, the which are again back to earth reduced. And as the earth, the soul ever persists, when the mortal body no more exists. The ignorant this fact cannot construe, encumbered by a differential view. How soul with body joins and separates, and metempsychosis never abates. Therefore, O Blessed One, do not lament that I of your son's death was instrument, for all the fruits of their actions receive, and reap of their own deeds, hence do not grieve. So long as one considers, I am slain, or I am the slayer, he doth remain unknowing, and to his own true self blind, to suffer and to cause suffering confined. Oh, pardon my evil acts, I implore, for you are good and kindly to the poor. His cheeks bedewed with tears, he did entreat, clasped his sister's and his brother-in-law's feet. Hearing the daughter's speech, Kamsa responds and frees the pair from their strong iron bonds. To Vasudev and Devaki he pressed, and his filial piety expressed. When Devaki saw how he did repent, from her distress and anger did relent, and Vasudeva disdain did forsake, and smilingly unto the caitiff spake. "'Tis even so, O highly blessed one, what you spoke of the nice distinction, that bodied souls by ignorance oppressed distinguish their own and others' interest. Grief, joy and fear, and jealousy and hate, strong avarice and pride, the changeful state. Who sees not how these conditions ensue, perceives only a differential view. Sri Shuka said, with this pure speech, Kamsa was mighty pleased. Vasudev and Devaki were appeased, and taking leave, respectful, reverent, back to his chambers, reassured he went. And when that night had drawn unto a close, to call his counsellors, Kamsa arose, and all that had been spoken did confess by Yoganidra, the mighty goddess. When having heard this statement to the full, and hostile to the gods contemptible, who always worked the woe of deities, the Daityas spoke, devoid of expertise. If such be so, O Buddha King, today, all infants but 10 days old we shall slay, or more or less, but wherever found, in city and town and pasturing ground. What of the gods and all their enterprise, who thought of combat ever terrifies, who when the twang of your bowstring they hear, they are discomfited and fraught with fear? When you discharged your arrows like the rain, the deities were massacred and slain, and while to save their lives some, full of dread, were routed and from the encounter fled. Some there, with folded palms, humble and meek, their arms forsaking, did your mercy seek, with loosened hair and garments, sore dismayed, and some confessed, "Oh, we are very much afraid." And when the gods their weapons had forgot, and full of fear dismount the chariot, those distracted, or those who have lost the will to fight, your sovereign lordship does not kill. The gods may boast and bluster and incite only when they rest removed from the fight. From Vishnu we need not be terrified, since he within the yogin's heart doth hide. And Shambhu also may be well withstood, since he has wandered off into the wood. The other gods are pusillanimous, and Indra is no cause of fear to us. and Brahma may be easily subdued, who always meditates in solitude. In spite of this, the haughty deities seek to perpetuate hostilities. Therefore, before they rise with branch and shoot, our verdict is, the gods we must uproot. As when the body falls into disease, if neglected, the ailment doth increase, or if the wayward senses are not curbed, they become uncontrollably disturbed. Thus, even when allowed with strength to grow, the enemy becomes a deadly foe. Of all the gods, Vishnu is the support, the root, and of righteousness the resort. The ancient virtue, the Brahmins and the cows, and sacrifice and gifts with pious vows. Therefore, O king, let us with vigour strive, the Brahmins of their glory to deprive. Let sacrificers and penitents be all destroyed with the cows that produce the ghee. Vipras, the cows, the Vedas, austerity, truth, self-control, and equanimity, faith, mercy, tolerance, sacrifice too, the form constitute of Hari, Vishnu. Thus he, by the celestials adored, to the demons his enemy abhorred. He is the stay and root of all the gods, who dwell in their bright heavenly abodes, including Isha, and the four-faced one, who rests secure under his protection. The only means, therefore, is to employ our vigour, and the sages to destroy. Sri Shuka said, thus, when the evil Kamsa had conferred, and had his evil counsellors thus heard, he deemed his good, holy Brahmins to hate, since he was bound within the toils of fate. He gave assent to torture holy ones, which was a task pleasing to the demons, who could assume whatever form desired. Thereafter to his chambers he retired. Involved in dark passion and ignorance, the idiotic demons did commence the persecution of the wise and good, since death had arrived and before them stood. Longevity and affluence and fame, virtue, the world's high blessing and acclaim, these and such fortunes are lost and forfeit, if any on the great outrage commit. Thus ends chapter 4 in Book 10 of the great and glorious Bhagavat Purana, the text beloved of swan-like saints, sung by the son of Vyasa. Om Tat Sat.